Hey everyone, it's Renee Jane. I'm really excited to be here. I'm doing an impromptu live and I just got to talk about this topic. So if you can tune in right now, I'd love to even hear your feedback below. And if you can't, come back and listen to this. But I want to talk about this concept around our health and even the quote unquote dieting culture, and then superiority. The idea of superiority I'm going to get into in just a moment, but this has come up in my life. I've noticed it in other people. I've also noticed it in some interactions in my past. I'll explain some stories. So it just was this huge like red flare. Talk about this today. And so, one of the biggest things about the concept, the idea of superiority really comes back from having a expectation that we know more than other people. And so, there's a couple different ways to look at this perspective. There are those of us who have innate intelligence in one specific or many specific areas where we definitely might feel like we are more superior. We might feel as though, gosh, it could be math, it could be science, it could be engineering, tech. I'm sure the person Alex, thank you, who does the technology for my website, definitely a much grander intelligence on that stuff than I have. However, there is a difference between having these characteristics of feeling smarter in certain areas and having innate gifts than feeling as though we are superior. And I want to relate this back to our health and why this can be so incredibly dangerous for so many people when it comes to our health, our nutrition, and even choosing the kind of foods that we might eat. I love the perspective that all humans have innate gifts, and when we come together almost like a team, we can share those gifts and help each other. And so noticing a few things, I'm going to just be personal for a moment. So I was doing some self-development work on myself, working with some mentors in the not too distant past within the last year. And I was going through some things about myself, some patterns that I was noticing. And one of the things that I noticed was that I had a really, and it still, by the way, creeps in from time to time, but I was noticing that I had this really big expectation of wanting someone, people in general, it was happening over and over, to have a different level of consciousness than they're at right now. I wanted them to be different. I wanted them to be in a place that I thought that they should be in. I don't know if you've ever had that experience before. And in essence, I was noticing that it also was showing me that I felt almost in a way superior. Like, gosh, if only they knew what I knew. And I also want to share with a lot of us that this can come from a place of self-protection, where we might not necessarily trust other people's opinions. And so we do our own research and we do our own discovery, and we go in and do all kinds of fact finding. And truly, when it comes to my body, no one knows better about my body than I do. I genuinely believe that. And I believe that for your body also. You are the biggest advocate for your body. So trust that. And with saying that, there can be some different kinds of beliefs and patterns that get stuck that we don't necessarily see. Most people consider themselves, this is literally tested through science, to be morally superior than other people. And I find that to be so interesting, right? That we walk around on a day-to-day basis and we think that we are better than everybody else. And I don't know, I'm making a totally generalized statement here. I don't know that all of us walk around thinking that all the time, but on average, as a whole, humanity tends to think that we are morally, can't talk today, superior than others. So where does this get us in trouble? This gets us in trouble, and I want to take note here because there's a few particular areas I've seen it come up with clients and with myself and with conversations with a lot of people online and things of this nature. So one of them is there's a term, it's called orthorexia. And this is when somebody can become addicted to eating healthy. And so we've probably heard of anorexia, and we've heard of different kinds of eating disorders. Anorexia would be one where someone would be and they starve themselves. Orthorexia is that they will only eat what they deem to be perfectly healthy foods. Now, when I was in nutrition school, I was surrounded by a lot of people who were borderline orthorexia, and I noticed it even coming up in myself. Fresh out of nutrition school, I don't know, about 9 or almost 10 years ago, I was so superior in my mind of everyone else and so judgmental. And I felt that they just didn't know what I knew, right? And this, the superiority doesn't mean that there's not facts. It doesn't mean that there isn't data or science around, whether or not we should be eating vegetables or fast food, as a simple example. But there's a rigidity that we can get into when we are in the sometimes unconscious mindset of feeling like we're superior, that we must be in this place of control and perfectionism. And what it really does, though, it reveals a very low self-esteem underneath it. It reveals a lot of feelings of inadequacy disguised as someone who thinks that they know everything. Another way that this sometimes shows up is in our diet industry, where there's a lot of competition between which ways we should eat. Should we be eating keto? Should we be eating vegetarian or vegan? Should we be eating the paleo diet? What about the pescatarian? I mean, there's so many different examples. And in any particular one of those cases, you will find somebody who is going to tout that their product or their way of eating and doing something is superior. And they may even say it's morally superior or socially or spiritually. And by the way, there's a lot of arguments for all of these kinds of things. But the reality is that what it does is it really puts us in this closed-minded space. Because first of all, as humans, we are unique, and no one body is like another body. And so for me, I'm a holistic nutrition practitioner. For those of you who have not met me before, when I work with a client, it doesn't matter what my beliefs are about the food system. My goal is to help that client connect with their body and the innate intelligence of their body so they can start to trust it. And we can find out whether it's genetically, whether it's through blood tests, whether it's through trial and error of seeing how something affects their digestive system by, taking things out and putting it back in. Our goal is to find out what works for them. And there's no room for this superiority. And when it comes in that there is this mindset, there's only one diet that works. There's only one way that works. By the way, I think this is a pretty common thing in our culture right now when it comes to politics, when it comes to issues that are social issues. There is a lot of superiority where we think our way is the only way and everybody else is idiots, essentially. I'm totally making that up, but I think you kind of get the idea. And this reveals a very big self-righteousness. I want to give a quick example. So this was years ago. I went to a conference that I would consider to be like kind of a self-development business kind of conference. And I was standing below the stage. This was before any of the speakers got up on the stage. And I was very excited because there was a whole bunch of really interesting people who were going to be speaking at this conference. I'm not naming any names on purpose, that I was very much looking forward to see speak. And I was standing in a circle of women, and I'm guessing there was probably about 6 to 7 women kind of standing in this circle. And I knew two of the women for sure, one kind of. But we were all just kind of talking, and there was a small opening like right next to me in the circle. And what happened is one of the people, one of the women, I'll say that, who was going to be speaking on stage. She's a well-known person in the industry that I am in, very well-known. She came over and she noticed some people in this circle that I was standing in that she knew. And I looked over to, like I saw who it was. I was going to introduce myself and say hi. And she kind of pushed past me in the circle and stood directly in front of me, like so close I could barely move, and took command of this circle that was already happening and conversation was flowing, and basically completely blocked me out of the circle. And I was like looking around her, trying to like get back in, and just completely pretended like I wasn't there. It did a few things. One, it really hurt my ego. And it really disappointed me, to be honest, because I really had a lot of what I thought was respect for her before that. And it went away entirely after that happened. But what it really did, though, is it disappointed me because it showed her superiority. It showed this root of actually a deep level of maybe she was just unconscious. Maybe I can give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she just didn't know. But I tend to think somebody in her position knows better. But there's a really deep feeling of inadequacy when we block people out of our circle. And I'm using this story, but also as a metaphor for if we are somebody in a leadership position and we are in a field that has a lot of clout where we're talking about something, I feel like it's really important that we don't lose our hunger for learning, that we don't lose our willingness to stay open to other people, that we don't close the circle on others that may not necessarily agree with us, because that's really what happened. I mean, this woman didn't know me. She didn't, it was not that we didn't agree, but in my metaphor here, she closed the circle. She didn't get to meet a really amazing person like me, right? Of course, I feel like I'm really amazing. But aren't we all, right? And don't we all have something to give? And so the idea of being hungry for knowledge, of talking less and listening so much more, especially when we might not agree, can be so valuable. We can gain so much insight from other people. And also, it's a sign of, I don't even want to say a sign. It's a gesture of respect when we can sit back and we can give somebody our full attention, especially when we might not agree. And we can start to, find this level of intimacy, emotional intimacy, where we might be able to share more humility and kindness about our perspective. There is less comparing ourselves. When we are in a place of superiority, we are immediately comparing ourselves on some deep subconscious level, thinking that our way is better and that there's no other way. I know a lot of people who feel so strongly about their position with health and nutrition, mostly because of maybe spiritual or social or environmental feelings, that even if it wasn't the healthiest for people and they knew it wasn't the healthiest for someone's body, they still would continue to promote their agenda because their connection to that spiritual or social or environmental idea is more important to them than somebody's body's health. And I think that's a whole nother video now that I think about it, but I don't know that that's necessarily something that I can get behind, right? Because I think that we all have to figure out what's best for our bodies. And so this is a call. I'm going to kind of wrap up here, but this is a big call to looking deeply at ourselves, to do the deep inner work. I'm doing it right now with myself. Where am I being closed off? Where am I feeling that I maybe am superior, or feeling that I'm superior, or having the sense that my thoughts or my beliefs or my knowledge and intellect might be more superior than somebody over there? And more importantly, where am I expecting others to be at a level of consciousness than they maybe are right now? My other camera just died. Sorry about the beeping. So with that said, I'd love to hear your thoughts if you have any. I think it's really important to take a look at this with our health, because I see it every single day when I work with clients, that we can get stuck in these mindsets that can be pretty destructive, that actually hold us back from growing and nurturing and nourishing our bodies with the health that we need, because we're so stuck in certain ideas. Okay, with that, I will wrap up. I'll see you all soon. Have a wonderful day, evening, wherever you are. Bye-bye.